as long as I see that and they're happy, and I'm more than happy to know that they're happy.
Razlan, thank you for your time. Apparently, Enea Bastianini's had a bit of a fall, so we better pass back to the lads. But thank you again. Look forward to talk to you through 23.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Razlan Razli. Yeah, best of luck to that new project next year as they embark on an exciting new chapter, the RNF Racing team with Aprilia next year. And our first faller of the day, coming late on as we approach the final hour of this Valencia test, is Enea Bastianini. He's gone down at turn number 6. That could have been a nasty one because he got his left leg trapped under the bike there, didn't he, as the bike and him slid across into the gravel trap. But thankfully you can see he walks away or trudges away through the gravel trap. So that's the first one out of the way. A first factory Ducati crash then for Enea Bastianini. A front-end tip-off going into turn number 6.
He had just set the fastest first sector of the day, so they were clearly pushing on. Both of the factory Ducatis are riding on board now with the world champion Pecco Bagnaia, who's also set a personal best through the first sector. You do wonder, those who are still planning on running for the rest of the day, if any of them are going to be keen just to throw a brand new soft tyre at this, just how much they'll be keen to end the 2022 post-race test here in Valencia as the fastest rider to go into the winter break. At the moment, that honour goes to Luca Marini, leading a Mooney VR46 1-2. But you wait and see just if anyone in the final 1 hour of running that we have to come here as the urge, has the temptation to go one last time attack, one last salvo to bring the curtain down on 2022.
You know somebody has. Somebody said to Mitch in their crew chief at the start of the day, I'll have one of those soft tyres, please, for the last 10 minutes. You've got to be careful, though, because the temperature can drop. Let's go down to some thoughts from Simon Crayfart.
Yeah, temperature's not too bad. I'm surprised it's not dropping quicker myself, Matt. But I've done a heap of days here over the last years, and like track days, and got to this time of the day, the sun strike is really bad at the end of the back straight and the last turn. When you're entering those two corners, the sun strike is so bad that you can't pick your brake marker the same. So I'll be surprised if from now on that the guys can go faster. If they do, they're doing it with one eye closed.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Simon. A phase of this Valencia test in these conditions that the photographers absolutely love. With the sun setting off in the background, you get those jaw-dropping backlit shots. But as you mentioned, yeah, the riders do have to be careful, particularly when they're coming towards that fast turn 13. Great spot for the snappers. We love watching those shots. But yeah, for the riders, this particular point here, you can just see off in the distance the sun starting to set off in the background as Enea Bastianini comes back to the factory Ducati garage to explain what happened into turn number 6. As Lewis mentioned, he was pushing on that lap. He'd set that fastest first sector of the day, and that was all that happened for him on that lap. It was his 55th lap of this Valencia test for the new Ducati Lenovo team rider.
And this is Pecco Bagnaia's 58th as he leaves the final corner. A laugh shared already with Davide Tardozzi. You can see how phased Enea Bastianini is with that. He's already sharing a laugh with that crash that he's just sustained as that first pair of pristine factory Ducati leathers gets scuffed up through the gravel trap.
Yeah, got the first one out of the way on day one. And Bastianini then having a little chuckle, as we just saw there with Davide Tardozzi. If he does that on a frequent basis next year, I don't think Davide Tardozzi will still find it quite so humorous. But yeah, it's all pretty relaxed. Ducati, they know Enea Bastianini very, very well, don't they? He's been there with them already for 2 years now, as we're on board with the world champion.
Following his former teammate.
Yes, Jack Miller. Of course, another rider, unfortunately, barred from his contractual obligations to Ducati from expressing any public thoughts about what he thinks of the KTM. We'll have to wait until deep into, or the early part of 2023 to hear the thoughts of Thriller Miller. I believe he once again is heading back home to Australia with his new wife, Ruby. And he's taking part again, isn't he, in the final round of the Australian Superbike Championship. Is Joe Colso doing that as well? I'm sure I've read somewhere where there's going to be a bit of a Grand Prix feel to the final round of the ASBK series, because I'm sure that Miller's doing it again, and I think that Joel Kelso even might be down to do it too. So keep an eye on that with Aussie fans. In fact, what we'll do is we'll have a little quick search on the old Google, shall we, and see if we can find out if there's been some updates about what Miller's plans are post-season. But he certainly did it last year as Bagnaia sweeps into pit lane, and over the line Jack Miller comes. That was lap number 51 completed for Thriller Miller.
Can confirm Joel Kelso has been confirmed. He will be wild-carding the final round of the Australian Superbike Championship. That takes place at The Bend.
Awesome. So Joel Kelso heading back home to Oz, and he'll be treating the Australian fans then to a good show down in the final Aussie Superbike race. And I do believe that Miller is definitely doing the same thing.
Well, I did ask Jack Miller at the start of the Grand Prix weekend back on Thursday if he planned on checking out the final round of the World Superbike Championship, which is, of course, taking place in that neck of the woods at Phillip Island, of course, where we were last month. He said he will obviously be going back to Australia, but he won't unfortunately be going to Phillip Island to potentially watch Alvaro Bautista lift the World Superbike Championship, because he's been invited to a wedding. Of course, he's already had his own last month. He's going to be attending another one later on in November, which means he unfortunately will not be in attendance at Phillip Island to watch the final round of the World Superbike Championship, partly because he'd get mobbed, I think, if he turned up at Phillip Island again.
When did Jack tie the knot? Straight after Buriram, wasn't it? In that gap between Thailand and his home Grand Prix in Australia. And I'm sure his new wife, Ruby, is expecting something more than a honeymoon at the Australian Grand Prix for Jack Miller. A weekend that Jack Miller will never forget, of course. It didn't end how he wanted it to, with the big smack from behind by Alex Marquez at a corner which just 24 hours earlier had been named after the Australian. That was a wedding gift from the Australian Grand Prix organisation. What an honour that was at a circuit where you've got the Doohan corner, you've got the Stowen corner, and you've got the Gardner Straight, of course, but turn 4 at Phillip Island, now known as the Miller Corner, and I'm sure part of Jack Miller's winter plans will be to find a honeymoon at some point with his new wife, Ruby. Of course, congratulations and best of luck to their life coming up together. New life at the moment, though, on track for Jack Miller on the factory KTM as we look at Taka Nakagami. 16th place at the moment for the Japanese rider. He's been doing a lot of laps on that new aero, hasn't he? The Idemitsu LCR Honda man. Some notes being taken down in the garage. I think that's the mechanics taking the mickey out of that. That gentleman was Jorge Lorenzo's former assistant as the beast crashed. Ducati comes back on the back of a pickup truck. Not the way he wanted to be returning that bike to the Ducati garage, but still all smiles at the moment for the beast. I don't think he's going to be too perturbed. It's a shame that he didn't carry that lap on through, though, isn't it? Because we're potentially looking at the best time of the day so far, which is still very much in the hands of the man on the opposite side of this pit box, Luca Marini, just a fraction under a quarter of a second clear of Marco Bezzecchi. He was a few fist bumps before heading back out on track.
Yeah, Marco Bezzecchi going to give us some late entertainment as we head into the final hour of running. Didn't look, just from the quick glimpse we got of it, certainly on the front tyre of that Mini VR46 Ducati, that looked as if it had put some laps in already. Can't quite see there the rear tyre. That perhaps also looked as if it had some laps put on it. Alex Marquez is still firmly in his leathers and debriefing inside the Gresini Ducati box, so we'll wait and see whether Alex Marquez goes out for a late salvo as well. He's one place behind his brother Mark at the moment in 13th position. 73 laps, rather fittingly, have been completed today by the number 73.
He's going to get his ear chewed off on the drive back home tonight, isn't he? From Mark. OK, come on, spill the beans then. How good is that Ducati? The bike that has just won the MotoGP World title in the hands of Pecco Bagnaia. We've seen a lot of this, haven't we, from the Ducatis and Aprilias in particular. And the Hondas too, as Marco Bezzecchi has another practice start launch. Well, starts and launches off the line, they're going to be absolutely crucial, aren't they, in the sprint races next year? Because if you botch it, or if you fluff it off the line, you're going to be in big trouble, because with only half the normal race distance to recover places, qualifying for the sprint race, and particularly the starts and how quickly you can find the grip and get those tyres up to temperature, that's going to be key ingredients for success in those sprint races.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to watch. Qualifying, so important over the course of this season. Of course, we've seen with Fabio Quartararo, he's not been able to quite rediscover his incredible qualifying performance of 2019 and 2020. The Ducati just able to switch on those brand new soft tyres and put a performance in that leaves Quartararo fighting for second rows, third rows, but course, in the sprint races next season, they will have the same grid. In case you're not quite fully clued up on the format for next season, the sprint race and the Grand Prix itself on the Sunday will have the exact same grid lineup. So qualifying even more important than previously in 2023. That qualifying session, that 15-minute Q2 session that the riders will desperately cover to place in, that 15 minutes will decide basically your grid position for 2 races rather than 1 next weekend, with 37 points per weekend up for grabs.
That will be box office, won't it? And Ducati, 16 pole positions in 2020. What a record that is. 16 of our 20 poles went the way of the Bologna factory. Not only do they have a superb race motorcycle, but certainly over one lap they've become the dominant force in this MotoGP World Championship. And you've got the power, the top speed of the Dukes, and the acceleration off the corners, and their pretty respected braking stability. It's such a hard motorcycle to overtake, so when you're stuck behind them on the grid, then you don't make a good start, it can be a real headache to try and get your way back through the pack. An experience that this man knows very, very well on more than one occasion in 2022. The power and the strength of Ducati over the one-lap format in those qualifying sessions really did start to show and take its toll on Fabio Quartararo. Did not have a front row in the second half of the season. After the summer break, no front row start for Fabio Quartararo. His last front row, believe it or not, was at the Dutch TT in Assen. Not even the one-lap brilliance of this man at times could cope and contend with the armada of Ducatis that were so good over one hot lap in qualifying sessions.
We'll keep a close eye on Fabio Quartararo's run now. It might be just the trick of the sunlight, the low sunlight bouncing off it, but it did look as if he had some brand new tyres on that Monster Energy Yamaha, so we might just see Fabio Quartararo here now, perhaps putting in a late bid to try and move himself up the order. In 17th place at the moment. This will be Fabio Quartararo's 81st lap of the day. So as I do the rough maths in my head, 81 laps, that will take him to exactly 3 Grand Prix race distances that he's competed aboard that motorcycle here today, and counting. So Quartararo's work never done. 53 minutes of this testing still to go, and Fabio Quartararo still has work to do. His teammate Franco Morbidelli is also still out there on circuit. Morbidelli himself has done 75 laps here today. And what a big season it looks set to be for Frankie Morbidelli next season. I don't think it's over-egging the pudding to say that Frankie Morbidelli is racing for his MotoGP future next year.
He really is. A very poor first full season as a factory Yamaha rider for Frankie Morbidelli. 19th in the World Championship, 42 points from 20 races. He's going to have to seriously ramp up that average, isn't he, next year to keep hold of that seat alongside Fabio Quartararo. Amazing. I mean, Frankie Morbidelli missed 5 races, injured last year, and he still scored 5 points less this season. Having done a full 20-race season, it was nothing short of a disaster. There was no top 6 at all. In fact, it was Valencia here on Sunday, that 10th place. That was his only dry race top 10 of the season. His best result of the season, well, that was in those treacherously wet conditions in Mandalika. That was a 7th spot. And let's not forget, it was only 2 years ago that Frankie Morbidelli was so close to winning the World Championship. He was a former race winner here from pole position in Valencia. So he's got to get his house in order, no question, as Frankie Morbidelli. Sure, it's been a puzzler, really, a head-scratcher for Yamaha, for everybody connected to Frankie Morbidelli. I think even Valentino Rossi was saying over the course of the weekend when he attended the celebrations for Pecco Bagnaia here on Sunday, it has been difficult to watch Frankie Morbidelli struggle so much, given that we know his pace, we know his potential. And they've just got to find some way to get the old magic back for Frankie Morbidelli, because he is a top rider, former Moto2 world champion, race winner in MotoGP. Let's hope Yamaha can find the winning formula again for Morbidelli.
And he'll be keen next year to try and stay out of the steward's office as much as he's been this season. We've seen an awful lot of penalties blighting Frankie Morbidelli's season. He's become a bit of a bad habit for him to get in people's way during free practice and qualifying sessions. So that'll be something he'll be looking to try and change next year. Fabio Quartararo does appear to have gone out there on brand new tyres. He just improved on his previous lap up to 14th place, doing a 1:30.780, and he's already setting his best first sector of the day so far on this, his current lap. So perhaps Fabio Quartararo is looking to try and launch himself up the order in the final stages. He's now halfway through his current lap and just 0.2 of a second off the pace as we pick up the 2021 MotoGP World Champion, coming through one of the many corners that we saw him overtaking Pecco Bagnaia on Sunday, which pretty much includes almost every corner around this circuit. It was one of the most exciting laps of racing I think we've seen at any stage this season. Fabio Quartararo versus Pecco Bagnaia, which led to contact as they came around turn 2. Quartararo is looking to try and launch himself up the order in the final stages. He was able to race on and finish in 4th position, which wasn't enough in the end for him to retain his World Championship. But he put his spirited defence of his crown this season. He's got a lot to be proud of from his 2022 season, and he's just got 50 minutes of it to go as Quartararo improves once again. He's now up into the top 10. A 30.5 moves him up to 9th.
Led the standings from round 5 in Portimao, and looked so good to successfully defend that world crown. He would have been the first Yamaha rider to have done so since Valentino Rossi back in 2009. But it all started to go wrong, didn't it, on the very first lap in Aragon, on Marc Marquez's explosive return to action. Quartararo, the innocent victim of a small mistake by Marquez. That rear tyre slide going through turn 3 compromised the drive speed from Marc Marquez. Nowhere to go. Quartararo just slammed into his rear tyre. And there was a disappointing 8th place in Motegi. The front tyre pressure problems, which completely wrecked his hopes in that wet tyre Grand Prix. No points there. And then, of course, there was the big mistake in that frenetic Phillip Island battle when he ran off at turn 4, nearly wiping out Luca Marini, and then trying to recover lost ground, coming back through the pack. But what really was a terminal blow for his title aspirations was the DNF at the Southern Loop in Phillip Island. Not a bad recovery, 3rd in Malaysia, 4th in Valencia, but still not enough to retain the title. Let's quickly pop back down to Simon in pit lane. Some more tech updates from him.
Just to let you know to keep an eye out for Brad Binder out there at the moment. He's got that new chassis as he did the race, but it has a different aero package on it. The lower fairing is wide like an Aprilia, you know, like the belly pan, and the front wing is also Aprilia-ish, as in it's not only got the wings like the KTM on the side at the front, but they kind of join at the front, not unlike the Yamaha and Aprilia. You know, the bar goes right across the front, so looks quite cool. Keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we'll keep a beady eye then on that, Simon. Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, that looks like that sort of lower Aprilia fairing with those fins on it has become quite popular in pit lane today, with KTM and Ducati experimenting with their own version. You can just see it there, can't you, glinting on the side of Maverick Vinales. Is a factory Aprilia in the low setting sunshine off in the distance. The curtain about to come down on a memorable 2022 MotoGP World Championship campaign. We've got just over 47 minutes of live coverage remaining here in Valencia before we say goodbye to a season that will live long in the memory with Pecco Bagnaia, the world champion. The emergence of Enea Bastianini, 3rd in the standings for him. The rise to prominence of the factory Aprilia team with Aleix Espargaro mounting on what was a surprise championship charge. Brad Binder flying the flag again for the factory KTM team. What a finale it was. What a farewell for the factory Suzuki team. Such a crying shame, or more than a crying shame, an absolute travesty that Suzuki are not continuing in the MotoGP World Championship next year. Maverick Vinales will be able to rediscover the winning touch on the Aprilia in 2023. All questions that we'll get answers to in about 4 months' time, as Joan Mir sat inside the Repsol Honda garage. Paul Espargaro, at this time a couple of years ago, said this was a dream, which quickly turned into a nightmare, didn't it, for him? At the moment, Mir has started to make some decent progress. He's got down to a 1:39.14 on his right. Our left is his hugely experienced crew chief, Ramon Aurin. What he doesn't know about Grand Prix motorcycle racing, Aurin, you could write on the back of a postage stamp. Certainly one of the most experienced crew chiefs in the MotoGP World Championship. That's why Honda were very, very keen to keep him paired with Mir, or certainly keep him on that side of the garage. Worked with Andrea Dovizioso, Danny Pedrosa, data engineer way back for Casey Stoner and Nicky Hayden, most recently, of course, working with Hoy Lorenzo and Pol Espargaro.
A little wink to the camera from Joan Mir there, where he was sat in the pit box a few months ago. So that's perhaps the extent of the reaction we'll get from him today. Of course, as mentioned earlier on, he's not in a position to be able to speak to the world's media and tell us exactly how he found his first day aboard the Repsol Honda, but certainly the body language there seemed to be reasonably positive from the 2020 world champion.
I know that Simon's working very, very hard to try and get some Honda reaction today from Alberto Puig and Lucio Cecchinello. That hunt and quest will continue. We're having a bit of a rolling stoppy competition, aren't we? At the entrance to pit lane here right now. Marco Bezzecchi, I think at the moment, is probably just shading it. A narrow winner against this man, Fabio Quartararo. But we haven't seen Jack Miller have a crack yet, have we, on the factory KTM? I'm sure that will be coming at some point. I remember that Valentino Rossi, his tradition, his end-of-season tradition, always used to be on his very last lap of this Valencia test. He'd just come out of the final corner and hoik a massive wheelie the whole length of the start-finish straight. Always was a popular sight for the fans and the paddock members here when Rossi ended the season. But that was a nice rolling stoppy there from Fabio Quartararo. He is still just inside the top 10 in ninth place. Here we go. Marco Bezzecchi, I'd say, was a good 9 out of 10. What are we saying? Oh, yeah, well, he just went out of sight.
Just unfortunately hidden by the gantry there.
Before he went out of sight, I was going to say 6 or 7 tops, but I think actually once he disappeared out of sight, he was probably creeping up towards a 9 himself.
Well, I'm sure our viewers will certainly give Fabio Quartararo their vote. We know that gentleman will. And Fabio Quartararo certainly not lacking in popularity, as we found out when he won the Agostini Fan Award for the best overtake of the last year. One of many characters that we will be able to build the sport around in the future, and I think this man here on screen is certainly one of them, one of MotoGP's great characters. Marco Bezzecchi, that sort of rock star look with the Marco Simoncelli-esque hairstyle that of course he sports, but also just such a super guy. As with most of the riders that come from the VR46 Academy, they're so good with the media, and they know so much about what it takes to put on a good image and certainly connect with the fans. I think Marco Bezzecchi, the better he gets in terms of riding, the more successful he gets, I think a legion of fans will follow.
Every time I see Marco Bezzecchi, particularly in Park Ferme, I don't know why, I just think of like Paradise City, Guns N' Roses start belting out. He has got the rock star looks, as Lewis said. A few times that I was able to catch up this year with Marco Bezzecchi in press conferences. A really likeable character, really nice guy, and hope that he can continue to make big progress in this MotoGP.